just picking these guys' brain and fairly informal. So a new year kind of provides a new opportunity. It's not quite the New Year's resolution bandwagon because it's kind of something we do all the time, is our goal setting. So that is the topic of today. I've asked Philip Rue from Sunny Point and Brian Craswell, Crasdale Farms, to join us. Philip might have had more say in the matter. Brian was kind of voluntold. But I want to thank him for doing this. So Philip, Brian, want to have a quick good morning?
Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Amber. I think I was voluntold too, maybe, but anyway, we'll leave that there.
So we're going to start quickly. And I was really pleased in that when we sent out the Zoom call, there's a lot of feedback with questions came out. People have a lot of questions. So today's format, we're going to keep most people muted until the later part of the session. So we're going to go through the questions that were already submitted and the questions we prepared, and then we're going to open it up for everyone to bring their questions forward. But at any point, if you have a pressing question or something, or if you're like me and you might not remember it later, just throw it in the chat box and we'll look at those as well. So first of all, we're talking about goal setting and performance goals. And I'd like to ask both of you guys for your farms, when you are doing this, who is engaged in this? Who are your strategic partners? Again, up one slide. Phil, why don't you go first? So who do you involve in your farm?
Actually, Amber, B is ahead of P, so I think we'll go with that. Brian's always first, and then I'll follow up. Does that sound, Brian?
Hey, whatever, yeah. Yeah. Well, for us, you know, most of you probably know our history, but like we built a robot facility. It's almost 6 years ago now since we moved in. And when we moved in, we decided that if we were going to make things work, I mean, obviously finances were very important. So we needed to set goals on how we're going to meet our financial obligations and move forward to having the kind of lifestyle that we wanted to have and you know, and be successful at what we're doing. So we really switched things on our farm and really tried to look at being proactive in what we did instead of reactive. And I mean, we needed to, the people that we needed to discuss that with obviously were first and foremost our banker. And then, you know, we looked at our vet, and we have, you know, obviously our nutritionists, and, you know, how we move through, like probably even like the techs for our equipment and stuff like that. And one of the ways we solved that is we hired one of the tech guys part-time to help us on weekends, which has been a big help too. And then, I mean, now they're also part of the team, if we're looking at setting goals, is talking to other farmers that we really respect. Like, and one of them, he can vouch for this, is Phil gets a few calls from Brian because we consider him one of the more knowledgeable guys. So, you know, it's people like that too.
So do you, when you are looking at this, do you have meetings with everyone in the like,
Originally we did have some meetings with guys, especially when we had a few problems starting out. But now it's more like, one of the things we've done in the last couple of years is people that know our operation, like our vet or whatever, we've said to them, you know what, you know the operation, don't be shy. Tell us 3 things that you would improve on our operation if you had the opportunity to do that, and then it's something we can digest and look at.
and so when you gather all this information, so who makes the final decision?
The people that have to pay the bills.
Yeah, so that then ultimately you're saying it lands on the farm owner for accountability.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Phil, were you done?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad Brian went first because, I mean, I think, probably everybody on this call is the same way. Like, I mean, we all kind of go to the same people or the same industry folks. And I mean, we're no different here. We rely a lot on our nutritionist and vet and, and I feel we're very open as well. Like, if you see a problem, don't hesitate to tell us. And, I mean, we're for sure here. Like we don't know it all by any stretch of the imagination. And it's just, if you see something wrong, it doesn't matter anybody in your team, I guess it goes without saying, if the banker sees something wrong, they'll be the first to tell you. But we use Daniel, obviously Daniel and Amber and Fundy Vets and, the agronomists, we use LP and, we all kind of have our little meetings throughout the year. We try to get have an in-person meeting twice a year is with the vet and with Frank and Daniel. Now that didn't happen last year, obviously, but in 2020. But we try to sit down and kind of go through, how the herd is performing and what should we work on, and I guess that's kind of where we are. But I mean, we bring Sterling in with Velacta, and we do get a lot of help out from we run Dairy Comp 305, so we do get a lot of help from the Dairy Comp people up there to generate reports because Daniel might have a certain question on what's this issue looking like, so we'll have to go through Dairy Comp and get us a report for that, and Frank is no different. So it's just the whole gamut on that side. And then as far as agronomy, like we'll just it's the same kind of thing. We go to sessions and you kind of pick what you feel is best and go from there, I guess.
And so the same thing too, like when you're making this, so on the farm, does it fall back on you, the final decision? That was a question we had too, or if there's like a group of people who makes the ultimate decision.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, if it's involves a herd or, the field work, like, we have our people there and, it obviously it comes back to me. But, to get buy-in, you kind of got to make them be involved and, value their input as well. So it's, it at the end of the day, it's up to me, but, you try to make this decision with the people that you have to work side by side with every day.
And so you mentioned about the gathering information. Where do you look? I'll go to you, Phil, first, and I'll go back to Brian. So where do you source your information? Like, what do you read for journals, or what do you look? Where are you looking on websites or things like that, or what do you? Or is it from?
Yeah, it's. I guess it's probably same as everybody. I mean, we do get Forage Dairyman here and Progressive Dairyman and Dairy Herd Management and various websites and stuff. And I guess sitting down.
Oops.
Just one moment. I accidentally muted Phil. It's not. There you go.
No, he's still on mute.
Yep.
Okay, you're back.
Okay, so
Sorry,
I can see how this is going, Daniel. Am I talking too much already?
It's nice to have a mute button at your control in life.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's all the publications, I guess, and you just I guess you breeze through them, and something piques your interest. You read that, and you try to apply some things to your farm, and that's about it, I guess.
So with Logan at school, what's he sending him for information? Like, where's he getting information?
Yeah, he's actually was on the Dairy Challenge Club and the Dairy Club in up in Guelph, and it was good.
So just maybe tell people who Logan is, Phil.
Oh yeah, sorry. Logan's my oldest son, so he's graduating, or we hope he is. I think he is this year from Guelph as from I don't even know the name of the course, but anyway, I'm drawing a blank here. It will come to me. But so he was in the Dairy Challenge this year, which I think there was 25 students. And then, they are presented a farm, and they have different teams, I guess. And then they try to problem solve any issues that may arise from this farm. And he learned a lot, and it was good to have that enthusiasm. And they looked at some pretty tough herds up there, like Josh Arlen's herd, and Ben Lowith up there, and there was a couple other ones. I mean, these are top herds up there for sure. And I mean, it actually made me feel pretty good, as bad as this may sound, because we all looking from the outside, well, you just think these guys got their shit together, but every herd has their issues, and we're no different. So it was that you don't really want to make yourself feel better at somebody else's problems, but I guess it just reiterated that we all have our own issues, and we all try to work through them, I guess.
And I think that's a really good point to make, Phil. And I see it a lot where, because I guess I get to travel between farms, and we all have good days and bad days on the farm, and we have to remember that that's not unique. And it kind of, as much as it's not really misery loves company, but it is a little bit that it's farms are
Yeah.
unique too. Yeah. So Brian, what about you? Where are you getting your information?
I get a lot of my information from the person who's sitting beside me. She's very good at reading publications and information, certainly the nutrition side of it and that. And honestly, I really value, like I had mentioned earlier, I mean, if we watch, who we feel are really successful farms, and bounce a lot of, try and bounce questions off of guys who I feel are, or farmers who I feel are successful, and try and find out why.
Just kind of your peer network.
Yeah, for sure. That's definite. And I mean, on the genetic side, say for breeding our cattle and that, I mean, obviously websites like CDN and stuff like that, is we spend a fair bit of time on there looking at bulls and things like that. So.
All right. So I guess for this first part, we'll say you guys are both kind of, how you define where you're looking at is through your close strategic partners. So your vet, your agronomist, your nutritionist, your cattle dealer, but then the people on your farm working with you too. And then the next part I want to talk about is like when you break down, and I've talked to you both about this before, so you kind of use your weakest link as your target for what you want to focus on, right? And when you break down, I know not everyone can see this slide because some of you are calling in, but it's just basically the areas. I just listed a bunch of areas that people look at on their farm. So production, transition, milk quality, and so on. Phil and Brian, could you just kind of highlight maybe what you guys feel your 4 or 5 most important things you feel a farm needs to focus on, or the things you really need to have in check?
Who do you want? Me?
We'll go with Phil first.
Okay.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, when I looked at this, I had this printed out in large print, by the way, the last few days. So I just kind of keep coming back to some of these questions because, I really struggle with that. I mean, what's your top ones on this list? And I can tell you what my bottom ones are, and not necessarily the best why, but time management and succession right now is the ones that I spend the less amount of time on. Like I think everything else, you're kind of in it every day, and it's one thing if you take your foot off the gas on any of these things, it will get away from you pretty quick. Or that's in my experience. That's what seems to happen. If you kind of lose focus on any one part of that, it can have ramifications throughout your whole operation. So, I mean, this succession one is going to become a big one here, I think, in the next, 5-7 years. So it's, something that's definitely we're starting to ask some questions on, but time management, well, I'm told that I spend too much time on the phone by a lot of people, and anyway, and probably if you look at my phone records, that's probably the case. But I guess we're all guilty of that, I guess. So.
I asked you.
Yeah, so I mean, as far as picking the one, I mean, yeah, obviously they're all important. You know, obviously we put a lot on production, but if you only focus on production and not transition or milk quality, well, you're not going to get to production. So it's an endless circle, in my opinion. I mean, same as reproduction and herd health, like it's all kind of right there.
The reason why I asked you to go first, Phil, is because I looked at Brian's and he kind of did the same thing too. He put like 2A, 2B, 2C. And I said, that's not what you're supposed to do. So,
Well, for me, I agree with you, Phil. And what it boils down to for me is, if I pick one off of that whole list, it all comes down to financial, right? I mean, we need to be successful. We need to be profitable. We need to be successful financially, and then pretty much everything else supports that.
but you have to see, like, so you can turn that around in what, like, a healthy cow is a profitable cow.
But
So
that's exactly my point, in that, you know, so if it's about, you know, being successful financially, the supports of that are like, the cows need to be productive in order to be productive. And that's where I get into, you know, I made financial 1, I made production 2, and then I went 2A, B, C, D, E, F, because it all supports.
Yeah.
Production. I mean, like the cows have to be healthy. The reproduction has to be right. It's exactly what Phil said. You've got to keep your foot on the gas on all of that. And I would say we're similar here, Phil, in you know, in on the bottom end ones, except where we different a little bit maybe is employee management and training, because we don't have a lot of employees. We run pretty much with, well, we have no full-time employee except for
Brian,
me, and he gets very poorly paid, but still buys in because of the operation. But you know, we run with a lot of part-time employees, but I think, you know, that's obviously still important that we train them how we want things done.
yeah. Did I miss anything on the list?
Maybe feed management,
Oh yeah, I suppose.
like how we manage our bunks, how we manage, you know, the feeding and things like that.
Yeah, I guess. All right, so Dan, you want to move to the next slide?
Sure.
So we talked a little bit about who's involved in setting these goals. And then we talked about, we're trying to highlight the main areas to focus on, but it sounds like everything. But so when you guys pick a topic that you want to focus on, so how do you relay that? Daniel, the slide didn't change. Brian, you go first.
Well, again, I think it for you know, for me, it all comes back to, you know, being, you know, being profitable, being sustainable, I guess, more so than profitable. And we look at, you know, I'll look at like our past achievements and compare them maybe to benchmarks and see if we're on track, and then try and set lofty but attainable goals from that'll help benefit our operation.
Give me an example.
Well, I mean, if we go back to when we built the barn and we knew we figured in order to make this operation fly, we talked in kilograms of milk per cow then.
Mm-hmm.
So we set goals of, you know, a 40 kg average, and we set goals of you know, talking with Valacta, like a 300 BCA. And, you know, then as we progressed, we learned that we needed to make sure that our cows were pregnant. So we set goals of a preg rate of trying to be 30 or better, you know, and then, so we worked towards them because it was necessary.
And so when you are looking at these goals and say you're talking your 40 kg average, like, did you set a deadline, or how'd you break it down?
Well, yeah, we looked at it realistically. I mean, we came from a tie stall herd that, you know, we were running at about a 32, 33 liter average when we moved in. And, you know, we knew we weren't going to do that overnight. I wanted to, you know, and after a year of trying some things, we also, you know, we were spending a lot of money adding things into our ration and that, trying to make better progress. And actually that's when Daniel became involved, and he hasn't paid me to say this, but it's true. And I mean, and
But
then
I guess I'll have to. You're going to ask for money now, aren't you?
yeah, but you know, I mean, I remember the conversation we had the very first time, Daniel, and it was about, you know, like, first we need to get your cows healthy and then they'll produce, right? And I mean, and that's was part of how we, you
That's
know,
kind of the
we work
philosophy.
towards it. Yeah.
And what about you, Phil? When you're setting your goals, like how do you qualify them? How do you, I guess, do you write them down? We have a board in front of the barn that has our goals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're quite a bit different than that. And I mean, when we have our meetings with, you know, the advisors, you know, that we use, you know, I guess one thing about it here is we feel that we're never happy. And I don't mean happy as an emotional state, but we're not very happy with what, you know, where we are. And, you know, there's always room for improvement. And I guess that's kind of what, you know, where we are is, you know, okay, well, you know, they're doing 45 liters. Well, let's try for better. But you know, it's like that, you know, I mean, that's what I struggled with here, just because you really here, we don't have goals. We just try to do better. And that means on everything that we do, you know, okay, well, you know, our preg rate, you know, it's a 28. Well, can we get it to 30? And, but, you know, in saying that, I mean, it's got to make financial sense at all of these goals. I mean, we can put pretty lofty goals in and just keep throwing money at it, and you might get it and you might not, but that's one thing we try to do here. And I think, you know, when we do that with our key employees, you know, we try to get them to buy into too. And I'm sure if you'd asked any one of them, they say is, you know, what do you want to do, or what do you want to be? And you just, you know, this isn't really good enough. Let's try to make it better. But I mean, as far as substantiated goals, no, we don't go that way. It's just try continuous improvement, I guess, on all aspects, I guess, is probably the best way where we are.
I would agree with that. You know, like, and that's one of the things that sometimes we struggle with. Like, you know, when we set those goals and we moved into the barn, we've met them, we've surpassed them. And then to keep striving forward. And I know Amber and I were talking about this before. Yeah, but we met a couple years ago from Tasmania that were cherry growers, and it really stuck with me with what that guy told me that time. He said, we need to celebrate our successes, you know, and I know here sometimes we don't celebrate the fact enough that you get there. It's just like on to the next place. It's hard to sometimes maintain that.
Yeah, that's an excellent point.
Yeah, and I would agree that if there's anything like here, you know, I mean, we've had some pretty good successes in the past on different things, or what I consider to be, and you know, I mean, you know, you try to bring the employees involved in making this happen, you know. So we have a pizza party, right? And I mean, as trivial as that sounds, it does seem to make a big difference with them, and you know, it's all part of it, I guess.
No, for sure. And I think, you know, when you talk about continuous improvement, part of that too stems from our industry, where we have to constantly or continually improve too, the way our industry is going. So how do you monitor the progress? Like, you guys both talked about KG's production. Are you guys just doing it? How are you tracking that? Just, you're at 45 today, you want to be higher, or you kgs of butter fat, or you looking at solids, everything again?
Right? Yeah, I would say and everything again, but like you had mentioned it earlier, like for us, like, I mean, we have a board at the front of the barn that we had written some goals, and I guess maybe you'd call it a mission statement on, you know, about how we, you know, want it to be profitable and sustainable, and have a, you know, basically a fun place to work that our team is happy that's working with us. And then our goals of production, and I remember, the original one we wrote on was 40, then we wrote 45, then we wrote 50. Well, then we start rethinking about maybe, and we've had this discussion lately about like maybe we should be thinking more, and it's obvious in the way we're paid, but about kgs of butterfat per cow as opposed to liters of milk, although we always think about liters of milk, and we probably always will. It's ingrained in us. But.
Actually, if I can intervene, Brian, I remember, I think it was probably about 5 years ago. I guess we started working 6 or 7 years ago, and I went into your barn, and that board on the left-hand side is one you're referring to, I think. Yeah. And I think it was 40 liters at 4% fat, and it looked like it was in female writing. So there's, and then I think we reached that goal 5 years ago, something like that. And then the next time I went in, I think it was scratched out, and all of a sudden, I think it said 1.8 kgs a cow, I believe.
You know what's on there today? Brian just updated it to 2.
To 2.0? Okay.
Yeah.
It's not there.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
But, in doing that, like we use Delpro.
Yes.
And probably Lacta's information as well. What about you, Phil? You said you use Dairy Comp and
yeah, as far as software, getting our info, yeah, I mean that we use Dairy Comp and FeedWatch, and I would put them equally important on this farm. We do use Lactanet or Valacta info as well, but we added FeedWatch feeding system probably 5 years ago now, and I tell you, it's been great here. I can't sing its praises enough, really. And no different Dairy Comp, just the data is at your fingertips. Now, don't ask me to extract it for you. I just call the people at the office and they get what I need. I don't try. I'm not a computer savvy as much as I probably should be, but I can get it what I need. So.
Well, you touched on there. So can you elaborate and tell everyone what FeedWatch is?
Yeah, so it's a feed management software that's actually linked in the Dairy Comp, and we have a tablet in our feed mixer, so when we enter our rations in, and then when our feeder Alex goes through the barn in the mornings, he'll take each group up, a quarter of a kg of dry matter, or take them, all depends on the refusals. We try for 3% refusals on the milking herd, except for a fresh group, and then we go for 5% on them. And so anyway, he adjusts it there. It looks after it. It sends the info right to the mixer, and then we don't have feed sheets or anything like that, like we used to in previous years. And so when we feed the cows, we do clean up every day. We feed the cows, and then we do weigh the refusals, so we know exactly what our dry matter intake is every day. And then, for example, Daniel gets a email every Monday morning with the weekly dry matter intake of every pen. And I just find this information invaluable, because in the past, I'm sure everybody's the same. When you do your weighbacks, you okay, well, I got a quarter of a skid steer bucket. I think it weighs 100 kgs, and it's a guesstimate, and I mean it's as good as you can do. But this here, we really know exactly what our feed cost is per cow per day, and we can track that. And I guess here we try to make things easy. Like we used to go through the exercise previously before FeedWatch, and trying to figure out our feed costs a day, and it was always a moving target, because you didn't know what your refusals were, and are you using your refusals for your heifers and everything. And that's I put a lot of value in that in FeedWatch, because it tracks it every day, and once a week I enter in that data in a spreadsheet that we made, Daniel and I, and it tracks my feed cost per cow, feed cost per kg shipped, and feed cost per percentage of milk sales, it's a pretty good tool for, you know, how we do it. So, yeah.
You know, if I can add to that too, Phil, like as a nutritionist or as an advisor in your farm, like when we get that weekly dry matter intake table, we can actually, it's really good because we can visualize what happened over the past week. And in your case, actually, we're looking at a 1 month dry matter intake chart. Phil has 3 lactating pens. He has a fresh, first lactation, and a mature cow pen. And every Monday morning, we can see what the trends were in dry matter intake over the past month. For example, yesterday, Phil, in fact, that was the topic of our conversation, right? We were trying to figure out why the dry matter intake has dropped about like 1.8 kgs on your herd over the past 3 weeks. I think we came up with 2 or 3 good ideas around that, but as a nutritionist, we can do a lot better job with that type of information. And we know it's accurate too, because we're using accurate dry matter percentages and the waybacks are actually being accounted for. So we know to the decimal point what the dry matter intake is in that pen. Thank you.
Actually, I might take up some of Brian's time on this one too, because one thing with our system and the automated system, we do track our intake as well, and that's all in Delpro. And I agree, it's invaluable, the information. Phil, have you found it hard? Like when you started doing that, like did it take was it more work? Like what, if you, I guess, what prompted you to start tracking it? And if you could convince somebody else to track it, how would you do it?
Well, is it hard to track? I guess that comes back to it's only as hard as you make it. And you know, I mean, yes, there's a cost to running this FeedWatch program. I mean, if you ask me, I wouldn't even know. It might be $1,500 a year, $2,000 a year. I have no idea what it is, but you know, it's just the information that it provides. And you know, if Daniel has a question on, you know, what you know, there's thousands of reports you can generate out of this. And I mean, I have like 4 reports that I focus on, you know, right or wrong. I mean, I have no idea. And it's invaluable. And it was a bit of a learning curve for a feeder at the time. He's no longer here. He retired, but you know, it was, but Alex, he come to work for us for about 1.5 years ago. And a little over a year, I guess. And he kind of jumped into it both feet, and you know, he was a little overwhelmed, I will admit, you know, trying to, you know, he didn't know what dry matter was, and he didn't know what dry matter intakes was. So you know, you just try not to force it onto the person. You know, you just learn a little bit, no different than most people. And you know, he's pretty key on it right now. And you know, if there's an issue in a pin or something, he'll let me know. Or and as far as you know, trying to keep our refusals at 2 to 3%, like, you know, he has that report he brings up every day. And it's invaluable in my mind. It makes it easy. And I feel that if things are hard to do, then they don't get done. And that's with me, and you know, probably most of my staff.
I think Amber's heard me say that an awful lot too, Phil. Like, I mean, if it's not easy to do, it does not get done. But I just had a quick question, Phil. I guess I have the advantage of being on here and able to ask it as we go. But how do you weigh your push-outs? Like, do you have a scale?
Yeah.
Do you have it on your loader? How do you do it?
Well, I guess like with FeedWatch, like previously, before we bought a self-propelled mixer, we would feed it, clean up one pen. Tim would put it outside in one pile, like the refusals, and then he would have like, you know, 5, 6 different piles, whatever the number is. And then when he was going to feed the heifers, we use the refusals to feed the heifers. Then he'll dump one pile in. Then you had almost like a garage door, open, click it, and advance the tablet, and then we'll go. And then it does all the calculations on the dry matter intakes is how it works. But now, since we have a self-propelled feeder, we clean out the whole entire barn because it's so quick feeding that we just have piles on a cement pad outside the barn. And then when Alex goes through, he just, you know, gathers up one pile, just advances it, and then it all feeds back to the main program. So yeah.
Very nice.
Phil, question though, with Alex, and you're new as you were starting with this and teaching him, do you think it would have been hard? Like, how did you teach him about the dry matter, feeding on a dry matter basis and all those little nuances that, a lot of the experienced guys know? How did you teach that to Alex?
Well, it's, I mean, it was a learning curve, and I guess that's the thing with, all of us. I mean, I'm no different. I find if, I get inundated with data or inundated with instructions, I just kind of blank out. So I just talk slowly and clearly to everybody, because that's my mentality. If I get too much going on, I just lose it all. So, I use that, with training, and I don't expect a new staff member, no matter what they're doing, if they're milking cows or feeding or whatever the case may be, they're not going to know it all in a day. And it's nice to have a guy come in that's willing to learn too, because I guess when we hire somebody, we try not to hire somebody that knows it all, because I've had know-it-alls work for me in the past, and that they're hard to deal with. And I just, so you gotta, when you hire the right kind of person, you want a smart guy, but you want a guy that realizes that he doesn't know it all, guy or gal.
So actually, that'll just move on to our next question. Dan, you want to go to the next slide? Just talking about the team. Did talk a little bit about buy-in and trying to include everyone in the decision-making process. And you talked about kind of everyone has their roles. So that kind of, you have your I guess, responsibilities assigned. But I'd like to know, how has your management style evolved over the last, say, 10 to 15 years? Brian, I'll let you go first. And I'll just, qualify it. You can bring in your experience with the sales and that, because, when we were running several sales a year, you'd have a new team come in pretty much every sale. So you could talk about that if you like.
Well, I've been told, and I would agree, that I'm actually a pretty crappy boss. Maybe in that I'm not definite enough sometimes in my explanations of what Phil just talked about and that's something that I've definitely tried to work on. My way around that through the years, I think, is to hire somebody running crews that I knew was really good at running crews when we were doing the sales and that. And here now, well, I have Amber, she's good at running people too. But I think the biggest thing I find, and if again, we don't have a large staff, but if you have people that understand the why you're doing something, I think that's the most important thing. If you just say, well, those calves need bedded every day, but they don't understand the why and how much it means to them to be healthy and dry and clean. If they understand the why, our daughter's 12, and when she understands the why, she buys in, right? And I think that applies to, it applies to anybody.
Yeah, no, and I think even though we're saying your part-time help, it has certainly helped in say for twice a week. He knows you don't have to teach him or follow up with him. He understands why we're doing stuff and buys in. And what about you, Phil?
Yeah, I guess that's probably the one thing we do on our farm. Everybody, to a certain extent knows why we do what we do. And, and I try to convey that to the staff. It's, we try to do the best of our abilities, to look after the cows or feed the calves or whatever the task at hand. And, it's, like I say, I keep going back to our key people, they have to know why we're doing this. And, you try to keep them involved in the discussions with, our advisors. And if we change up our management or an action we're doing, say, for instance, on our calves or whatever, we have to make sure that, our calf gal there, Lori, that she knows why we're doing it. So she buy in. If you start barking orders at people, they tend to lock down or just don't pay attention and don't give a crap, really. So, we want to keep everybody caring, at the end of the day.
Yeah. So we'll go on to the next slide, Daniel.
Sure.
I'm going to talk, this is just a quick one about experience. And maybe Phil, I'll let you go first on this one. Could you just highlight, say, a goal you guys set up for your farm sometime, and like, what do you think made it successful? And then I think we kind of touched on this before, but how did you recognize its success? Like,
Oh, okay. I have got a couple texts about this bicycle in the background. That was my bicycle, and obviously I never rid it once, and that's the kind of bicycle I like. So I'll just say that it's a great wall ornament, and we'll keep it there. So anyway,
Stationary bike.
yeah, that's right, exactly. So yeah, so I guess, you know, if we go back to when I started, I come back to the farm in 1991. You know, I was you know, I just kind of did chores, you know, as a teenager and young kid, and didn't really have any interest in the farm. And then I went and did other things, and then when I come back, I realized that this is what I want to do. So you know, at the time we had different trade agreements at the time. You know, it was you know, threatening supply management. You know, the same things we deal with yearly now, it seems like. But you know, at the time, I think we was milking 70 cows, whatever the number was, and you know, the goal was to get to 200 at that time, because you know, if supply management went, we had to make it viable that you know, had to have enough volume to make it happen, to make it sustainable, I guess. And so, you know, you put your foot on the gas, and that's your goal. I mean, it was never written down, you know, but that was, you know, where you get. And then when you get to that, you just kind of, you know, put another one in, and you keep your foot on the gas, I guess. You know,
so now in 2021, do you have what's your plans now? Is there anything you guys are working on?
well, there's lots of plans, but you know, the industry we're in now it doesn't agree with the plans, I guess. So anyway, it's you know, I guess just try to, you know, until there's, you know, I mean, obviously, I guess it goes without saying, we would like to expand. You know, obviously, if we have children coming back to farm, you know, we got to, you know, I shouldn't say we have to, but that would be the goal, to maybe expand in something, whether it's dairy or something else, to keep people engaged. And that's I guess just going back to when I started farming. And I know this is a question, but I think later on, but it kind of feeds into it. Like you know, when I come back, you know, Dad was very good at, you know, just stepping back, I guess, and then letting me kind of learn my own mistakes. And anyway, so I learned lots, I made lots, but you know, I had the support of him. And I guess that's what I'd like to convey with, you know, if we have any kids that come back, then we'd like to do that. But you know, whether it's expansion in dairy or you know, whatever other opportunities there may be out there, it's the world's big. It's just whatever interests they have, or what makes sense, I guess. But you know, I know that's, sorry, I got a little off topic, but that's kind of where we are.
Right. Actually, while we're doing this, I'm going to stick with Phil. Sorry, Brian.
Yeah,
But
that's all right.
we're talking about, like, you know, when you started, if you could talk to yourself back then and say, like just say, like, if there's something you were focused on then and you're like, that was really good, you should keep doing it. Like, what do you know now to be true that you tell yourself then?
I'm going to do it backwards, Amber, because I know what wasn't true. And back when we back in the early 90s, you know, it was quota was still sold by the liter, and then it changed to the kg of butterfat. And the general talk was, quota's too much money, you can't afford to buy it. And you know, I mean, that was just a general sentiment within the industry. And there was just a few farms that, you know, I kind of looked up to, you know, that kind of went against the grain, and you know, tried to you know, copy them or be inspired by these different farms. And you know, just put the foot to the metal. And it was a pretty good opportunity then, because you know, there was a lot of farms at the time that just felt that there was no way you could pay for $500 liter quota or 18,000 or $20,000 kg quota. And, in hindsight, or, I mean, went up over 30,000. In hindsight, it was the best decisions we ever made. And, feeding into that, it was, I knew when I come back to the farm, I knew that I didn't want to do it myself. That was not, I wanted to have a lifestyle that we could go away and do things that we wanted to do. And that was one way that it had to happen. So to have that happen, we had to be big enough that we could have staff to so we could enjoy some things in life, I guess. So that's what I knew wasn't true. What I do know is true is, I guess you have to believe in yourself. And, there's lots of naysayers in the world, but, if it makes financial sense and you're willing to take risks, then, it pays off. I mean, everybody on this call knows that. And, that's what I do know.
And if you had one thing, if you could highlight one thing every farm should have, what would it be?
One thing every farm can have?
Like a little tool
Could
that
have.
you find is like indispensable.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, yeah. If you have staff, you got to have a good staff, not people that dread their job. And and if you don't have staff, then be happy with your work, I guess. But I try to keep our staff happy, and that's at the end of the day, and that's what we tell everybody to come here, our part-time milkers and whatever. Like, we get them to come, and you guys give it a whirl. And if it's not for you, listen, I totally understand. One thing's for sure, you're going to have a bad day. Another thing's going to be for sure, heifer's going to piss you off beyond belief. And another thing's for sure is you're going to get shit on your face. But that's just the way it is. And if you don't dwell on that, it's not that bad of a gig, really. But anyway, that's.
Phil, there was actually a question from the group, and it's, have you ever used financial incentives to improve employees' buy-in?
We talked about it at different times throughout my career. We never went that way. We do give bonuses. One course I took years ago was, they talked about the pluses and minuses of giving financial incentives. And I just feel that if you do that, you got to spend a lot more time measuring results. And I don't want to measure results on an individual person every day. I just find that I can do better things with my time. If you hire the right people and treat them the right way, and don't try to work people like dogs for 16, 70 hours a week, because unfortunately that's the world we live in. A 40-hour week is a pretty good week for a person now. So, and I'll be the first to admit we're pretty heavy staffed here. But in saying that, nobody works more than 50 hours a week unless we're cropping. Most people work 35 hours a week, and that's unfortunately or fortunately that's the only way that I can seem to keep staff, is if they feel like they have no time for the families or the fun stuff in life, then they'll find someplace else to work. So it seems to work for us.
So Brian, I'm going to go to you, but I'm going to skip the other part. So what do you know now? You can talk to your 20-year-old self.
There's a lot of things I'd tell my 20-year-old self, but I know Phil covered a lot of things there and covered it well. But I know one thing I would tell my 20-year-old self would be ask more questions. Like, don't think you know it all, which I don't think I did, but a lot of times I don't think I asked enough questions, maybe out of just being too shy to ask them, and thought you'd appear not knowledgeable, and I think, I asked, I'm a lot stupider now than I was 30 years ago. I'll tell you that. I ask a lot more questions now, and I guess you're more comfortable with yourself. But if you could do that when you're young, and then just realize that when you apply that stuff and you do it consistently and persistently, it's like Phil said, it'll pay off. You need to believe in yourself, but also believe, that's why we have a team now, as opposed to, we've always said that's one of the, that's our farm, as farmers, that's our greatest weakness and our strength, and our greatest weakness is our independence. We don't work enough together.
Mhm.
And I think like asking our peers and, I think is a huge advantage.
And then what's a tool you can't be without? Or you shouldn't be?
When I read this question, the thing that came right to my mind, and Amber was so happy when I said this, and she did not prompt me to swear, is I said a Coster tester. We do dry matters pretty much. We maybe have a little different setup where it's easy for us to do it, but we do dry matters pretty much every day. And I think it really helps. It goes back to like, Phil said about, feeding the ration or as close to the ration that
Consistent
we're supposed to
intake.
be
Yep.
feeding and consistent intake.
Yeah, so I'm gonna.
That's excellent. Yeah, sorry, Brian. That's excellent. That gives me a cozy feeling inside as a nutritionist. There's and I think a lot of times we do make trips to farms where the Coster tester is not being used. All of our farms are excellent, but once in a while there is a situation where the forage dry matter is simply the culprit and why the cows aren't producing well. So it's probably one of the best cheap tools that can be used, I think, on the nutrition side on a weekly or even more frequent basis.
Well, and what's interesting at our place is with Delpro, we enter the dry matter and it calculates with our feeding system. It calculates the changes for us, but I can't fake it because my nutritionist or my advisor can look on there and was that entered yesterday? Was it entered the day before? So I have to stay pretty honest.
So I think we're going to go into the producer questions now. And the first one here was just about genomic testing. And you guys, are you both genomic testing and using that information?
Yeah, we genomic test all our calves, I guess, except for ones that aren't Holstein. And I would say a couple of years ago, I mean, I've always loved genomics and the information it gives us. I would say we didn't use it. We don't use it to like cull heifers out of our operation, not because we didn't have the luxury of doing that because we were trying to build inventory. But what we do definitely is use it to, in our breeding strategies and things like that to breed the kind of cow that we want to breed.
What factors are you looking at?
Well, definitely, I mean, we're production oriented and health trade oriented. And I mean, I love pretty cows, but they have to make us money first. And in today's world, like, I mean, look at kgs of fat. We look at, the health traits to do with reproduction, and the type traits that suit our operation.
Yeah. Phil?
Yeah, well, so yeah, we genomic test everything. We have for probably the last, I guess, probably year and a half, something like that. Previous to that, we genomic tested, a swath of the calves just to see how close the parent averages were to the actual genomic results. So, but we still do. Yeah. So the situation we're in is we only keep 6 heifer calves every 2 weeks. That's what we do. That's all the room we have. We've proven time and time again that if we overcrowd these pens, that everybody suffers. So obviously, we have a few more heifer calves than that probably from time to time in the 2 week cycle. So, we try to sell them or whatever. And, we just cannot, we do not have the room to keep these extra calves. So we're not calling these heifers based on genomic values. So we're kind of doing it after the fact. And I question whether we should spend the money or not, because, we've proven to ourselves, fairly often that our parent averages are pretty darn close to, and I feel that, if a farm does a really good job at keep breeding management and making sure you're breeding this right bull and marking it down as the right bull to that cow and tagging your heifer calves at, the moment they come out and stuff like that, then your parent averages are going to be pretty close to what your genomic results are. Not always, but close. And I don't know if we're really getting the value of this genomic testing. because of that. If we had the opportunity to maybe keep all the heifers and genomic test them and then call the ones we didn't want to, maybe that would make the most sense. But in this market, nobody wants calves. They just don't want calves. So it's I struggle with that. Daily. I would say is what the best way to go is here. But currently, we genomic test everything, and I don't know if we're going to keep doing that for the reasons I just talked about, I guess.
So you do use it though on the paternal side. When you're picking a bull, all bulls are they're genomic tested. So what markers are you looking at when selecting sires?
Yeah, I mean, everything you want it all. I keep saying we want it all, but we're a lot less focused on type than we used to be. I mean, at one time, you want it to be 10 plus, and now I hardly ever look at a 10 plus bull because the stature on the 10 plus bulls just too much, and we find ourselves moving down to the 5 range and on confirmation, and it's plus fat. We try to breed to 100 kgs of fat, plus deviations, protein, slope to the rump, strong loin, chest width, all them things that make matter. Straight set of or not a straight set of legs. We want some curve to the legs. Unfortunately, that's really hard these days to find a good bull that has that. I mean, and we're seeing in our heifers, straight-legged heifers, and we're actually had to call a few milking heifers for that, just too straight-legged and swollen joints, you name it. So yeah. But yeah, it's a daughter preg rate and all the stuff that Brian talked about.
Sounds like you might have similar bulls in the camp.
Yeah.
The next question for you is, if you can look at 3 KPIs every day, what would they be? Or what are your 3 main things? I'll let Brian go first.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess what I do look at every day definitely is what our herd is averaging. And like with the robots, we have our milking queue and what the cows do, and it gives us percentage of expected yield. And that's something I pay attention to because it tells me pretty quickly whether our cows are trending up or trending down. So sometimes it drives us crazy because we're trying to look for problems almost before they start. The other thing is feed intake, dry matter intake, and then, I mean, same as Phil mentioned it earlier. I mean, income over feed cost, right? I mean, it's about that's what drives the whole thing.
And Phil?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. Like when I go out in the morning, that's what I look at. What's the herd averaging? Are they trending down, trending up, or staying static? Dry matter intake, I look at that every day. And our parallel deviation list. I mean, it's a little archaic for you robot guys for sure, but I mean, who's down in their daily milk production? Dairy Comp gives us a report, and we look at that and see if they're after morning milking, are they trending up, or if they're not, should we put a set of eyes on this cow or these cows? And I will say that we did buy some rumination collars a while ago. A couple of weeks ago, we got them put in. I think we're at day 10 now, I think, and I can't. The information we're getting from these rumination collars, we just put them pre-fresh, like 3 weeks post-fresh, and then they're on for 4 or 5 weeks after freshening, and we've saved in that 10 days, we've saved 3 cows already. That we had no idea there was anything wrong with these cows, and rumination gives us an alert, and we go out and put our eyes on them. Well, she looked all right to me, and sure enough, one was down in milk fever like 4 hours later. Christ, I would have no idea. I mean, I like to think I know what a cow looks like, and pretty decent around cows, but I had no idea. It really shocked me. And I just, as I was sitting here, we got an alert from a heifer that calved yesterday, and and now we seem like we're taking these alerts a lot more than serious than we did with the first few days. So it's, this is all new to me. I'm sure there's people on this call that say, yeah, you dummy, you should have had that a long time ago, but it's pretty slick, I think, anyway.
Well, to save you from answering a few texts after, so what are those exactly? Like, who makes them?
They're SCR All Flex, I guess. Yeah.
So the next three questions, like just bunching together. So what motivates a young farmer? And then when you think about it, like what's our biggest challenge over the next 10 years and what's our biggest opportunity? Brian, you want to?
Well, I don't qualify to answer that anymore. I like to think I'm a young farmer. Not sure if I qualify anymore. But I mean, I think honestly, what Phil just talked about motivates a lot of younger people is that like the opportunities we have to be more accurate in what we do through technology, like the technology that's available. I mean, we absolutely, it's the same idea. Like we run Herd Navigator here, and things with BHB levels for ketosis and things like that. Like it's, we saved a lot of sick cows. Biggest challenge for dairy farmers over the next 10 years, I don't know if it's a lot different than it was 30 years ago or 20 years ago. I mean, it's about us remaining sustainable, and that is a bigger challenge. Like I think we, with trade issues and things like that, those are our challenges. And I think like Phil said, when he came home and when he was younger and looked at, trying to become more efficient and things like that. And I think we really need to be on top of that. And, I mean, that can bring up a whole range of topics that not everybody would agree with, but, even things like farmers working more together than our system allows us to, could help us in that aspect. But,
and futures and the opportunities. So that would be one.
Yeah. The opportunities, there's opportunities there that we don't even know what they are yet. Like I see, like A2 and ultra filtered milk are listed there. To me, they're actually opposing factors. Like A2, the big thing about that is, for lactose intolerant, well, if we progress down the road with ultra filtered milk, well, that kind of solves that issue. So, do we need to be breeding A2 if we're going to have ultra filtered milk?
Mhm.
I don't know. That's more of a question than an answer.
Yeah.
Philip?
Yeah. So what was the question again? You better say it again. I lost track again.
What's going to motivate Logan or your future farmers and the challenges that we're facing in the next 10 years? And then what are the opportunities?
We'd like to hear too, Phil, if you identify as a young farmer yourself.
I'm pretty much in Brian's camp there. He only looks a lot younger than I do, but anyway, what motivates a young farmer? I think everybody's motivated by different things. All I can do is bring it back to me, and what motivated me was feeling that you had a voice in your industry, and the next generation should have a voice in their industry, and not be when you go to the dairy meetings and the dairy board meetings and stuff, is I like to think looking back when I went to them, no question's a stupid question. And it's if a young person is constantly told their idea is maybe not a great one, or it's stupid, or nobody pays attention, then you get pretty jaded after a while, and you just kind of give up. And I felt like when I started attending meetings, right or wrong, some people actually put some thought into some of the things that was said around the room, and it kind of keeps you engaged. And I think we want to try to keep our young farmers engaged, whatever that is, whether it's in dairy politics or on the farm. And like Brian says, technology seems to be, a lot of young farmers don't want to survive without it. And I can see why. I mean, we don't have a lot of technology here, but what we have, we sure wouldn't want to do without. So yeah, I would say agree with that. Issues in the next 10 years, there's a pretty long list. Like Brian said, it was a pretty long list 10 years and 20 years ago, but you know, the ones that really concern me is declining dairy consumption. I mean, you know, we talk about it every year and nobody seems to want to do anything about it. I don't know. I mean, you know, this A2 or ultra filter milk maybe a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. Who knows? But you know, it seems like you know, our kids have some friends over and all the time, and you know, oh no, I can't drink milk or dairy products. It's you know, I'm lactose intolerant, and you know, I just wonder if a lot of these people are, it's trendy to be lactose intolerant. I don't know, maybe they are, but it just seems to be trendy almost. I can't drink milk because my naturopath told me I can't drink milk. You know, it's just I hate to say foolishness like that, but I just said it. So it just I think these are all issues that are going to affect us. I mean, at the end of the day, we have to sell milk, and you know, if it's one less customer, it just means one less person that we can sell milk to or milk products. And so I think that's a big issue. I mean, along with the other ones, but you know, the opportunities are if you have some investment from our processors that actually will take a risk on you know, maybe packaging milk in something besides a cardboard box. Maybe let's try that and see if we can maybe market it as something in the future instead of friggin' 30 years ago. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's my thoughts.
you're right. It's kind of a catch-22 with the dairy producers, and that we pay our marketing fees, so we don't really investigate, or we don't invest a lot of time into the marketing of our product, but we kind of need to do a little more of that in the future. So that was all my questions. Daniel, I think you had
A few actually, yeah. We've got a lot coming in by text and on the individual group chat board. So, Brian, this first one's for you. It's from Sean Ruby in Newfoundland, and he's asking, when you switched from tie stall to robots, what challenges did you face, and what percentage of cows did you have issues with on the robot? And do you have any regrets going to robot?
I'll start with the last one. The only regret I had is that we didn't do it a lot sooner. You know, as far as the herd itself, I've told this to many people many times. The herd transitioned very, very easily. We lost one animal the day we moved in. She split herself, and I told people before she moved in that just the way she walked, she was the kind that paddled out to the side, and sure enough, she was done, just a young one. But overall, really, the cows transitioned much better than the people. Like the owner that's speaking right now, it probably took him about 2 years to find his place, you know, like with just different routines and management style. And I mean, it's like everything, it's a never ending process. But I think it was probably 2 years before I was comfortable. It was a totally different world.
Okay. What percentage cows would you say made the transition well from tie stall to robots?
I'd say 99.
Okay, excellent. Yeah.
There's just touching on that, going from the tie stall to the robot, those cows did well. Cows that came from a parlor to a robot, they were much more difficult because the older ones were so ingrained that we'd go get them, that habit was very hard to break.
Okay. Now, Brian, too, this is a question from me. You've come from the arena of selling high genetic cattle in auctions. Now, when you went to, now that you're transitioned into robots and your priorities changed somewhat, have you been marketing cattle that are, quote, robot ready, or have you changed the way you market your cattle?
To be very honest, we haven't been marketing many cattle in the last 2 to 3 years, and mainly because we've been trying to, you know, just grow our operation. Like really, when we went into our operation, we just happened to hit a time where we were able to buy quite a lot of quota all at once, and all of a sudden we found we were short on inventory. And you know, that was a miscalculation on our part to not have more inventory moving in. So we've been trying to grow the herd more from within, you know, and we're to that point now where now we have surplus.
But it's kind of the same cows.
Yeah, like, and I mean, the kind of cow I like hasn't really changed all that much, except we pay more attention to, you know, to teat placement and things like that. But I guess the short answer is no, we haven't been marketing a lot, Daniel, if, you know,
Okay.
the short answer.
There's another question came in from a young farmer. Here it is here. If everybody can turn the volume up.
Question for philosophy, Phil. Being, goal setting, successful farmer, what's the first thing you do at first thing in the morning? Just curious. Thing in the morning. Just curious.
So Phil, what's the first thing you do in the morning?
Well, my alarm goes off and I wake up, so I guess that's about it, right? So, yeah, I guess when we so the way it works here is our morning crew comes in and milks. They start at 3. 1 week, my herdsman Tony, he goes out. He comes to work at 6. He helps finish up the first lactation group, and then we helps with the fresh group, bringing the fresh group in, dealing with any fresh cows, yada yada. And then the alternate week, that's what I do. So when it's my week this week. I go out and like look at the reports that we mentioned before, and then help with dealing with the fresh cows and anything else that might need on the barn. But yeah. I'm sorry I didn't have a video to go with this one.
Question from Dan Mosley. He asks, does good physical performance equal good financial performance? And what he means by physical performance is, say, a target of 40 liters of 4% fat, or a target of 2 kgs of fat, or 28% preg rate. Have you found that type of performance indicators are related to good financial performance in your situations?
I would say in our case, absolutely. And, it was essential that we did that when we built the place. And, I know our goals were to do that, but we always said not at the expense of financially. Like, you can't just make your goal to be 45 liters and just throw money at it. It's got to be done that it makes money. And that was the healthy cow thing. And I think a couple of really good indicators of that are, how your cows are milking, how they're testing, and if they're getting pregnant or not. That's pretty good indicators, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. I guess same here. Like, it's I think it kind of goes hand in hand, but obviously you got to be cognizant of what kind of money you're throwing at all these things. Like, the best our cows ever milked was probably 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it was. That was hands down the best our cows ever milked. They were just a touch over 2 kgs a cow, and we haven't been able to hit that since. But in saying that, at that time, our breeding was terrible. We had cystic cows. The good portion of our herd was open, and it took a long time to come out of that. Yeah, it was great that they were milked, but boy, we paid for that for a while after that, and so that proved to me, you got to keep your foot on the gas, and you got to pay attention to everything. You're going to have highs and lows in your herd, but boy, I tell you, in this industry, man, if you don't pay attention to everything, it can go sideways in a hurry. And what little bit I will say, and Brian Newcomb and I was talking about this the other day, and one thing about chickens, it's they're here for 6 weeks, and it might be the worst flock you ever had, and they're gone, and you don't have to think about that again. You get to restart in another 6 weeks, and might be the best one. With dairy, it's just if you take your foot off the gas, you're paying for it for a year at least, and it's a different beast for sure.
Amber, that's all for questions on our end here.
Yeah, so I'm all my questions are kind of clear too.
Yeah.
I did have one come in just about robotics, and if we thought that was maybe a trend for the future, but I think that's it's farm specific. for us, it was a natural thing with the labor available in our area. But technology for sure is the way of the future.
I'd just like to ask a question regarding robots. What, is there, do you feel that there's a size that when robots doesn't make sense, or you feel like, I mean, obviously there's lots of really large herds or I shouldn't say lots, some large herds in the US that's milking thousands of cows with robots. In your opinion, you feel this is a good use of money compared to, a large rotary or something? What's your guys' thoughts?
For me, I think it depends. The question, like all the systems work well. It's just when you're scaling it, right? So if you're in a parlor or if you're in a rotary, it's easier to add a few more cows or the transition. But with a robot, you're scaling from one robot to add another robot. And, the cash flow on that other investment is more difficult. Brian, do you have anything?
No, I would agree. I think that's a hard question to answer, Phil, and I think a lot of it depends on where you are, availability of help. And I mean, like a rotary parlor is a pretty darn efficient way of milking a lot of cattle. There's if you're a big farm, there's no doubt about it. The thing I like about robots, but I mean, it's to get your herd really robotic, is the cows that love robots. It's incredible what they can do, right? And it's still like guys that think they're going to put them in and not have to be there. That doesn't work. But there is a little less, there's less labor involved for sure. You're working a different way, I think. But, I mean, there's pluses and minuses. I mean, I like them. For us, I like them very much. But you know what? Like when you're done milking in a parlor situation and you go home at night, you're done. We don't get a lot of alarms, but boy, I'll tell you, it's not nice when you do get that alarm in the middle of the night and you have to get up and go to the barn. So you need to be cognizant that will be part of your life if you put robots in.
Okay.
Every now and then your kid gets sick and you have to get up in the middle of the night with them. That's how it works.
Yeah. I see there's a lot of people that called in here. They're on their phone, so they can't actually type a question in. But if you have a question and you're on your phone, just text it over to us.
Oh, here's another question too. A few words on the importance of feed management. Like both you guys, what I find probably what's not unique, but what's a common thing between both two farms is you guys both feed on a dry matter basis. Basically, you're both tracking on a dry matter basis your feeding programs and your refusals. Mm-hmm. And I think that the question was if you guys want to both to speak to that importance. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and like I'll admit it, and this is how uninformed I was when we first started here. I didn't really know what the heck dry matter was all about. I mean, we fed our cows round bale silage and stuff like that, and they ate what they ate and they left what they left. And then when we started in here, and then the cows would be low on feed or high in feed, and boy, they're eating good today, or boy, we kind of forgot that it rained the day before and they ate mostly water, and then it, really clicked in how important that was to monitor that.
And to have consistent feed there.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things you did, Brian, to the other thing too that you didn't comment on is that you actually build a defacer so that you also have that consistency. And for people that have not been to Brian and Amber's farm, they actually use feed boxes where they put the silage in. I think it's once a day, is it?
Yes.
Into the feed box, and then it's automatically added to the mixer. And just by doing that defacing and putting it into that feed box, I think really helps for diet consistency a lot.
I think that's the key word there on the reason why both you guys do it is just for consistency of feed at the bunk for the cows.
Yep.
Not to put words in your mouth, is that?
Yeah, that's pretty much what Brian said. I guess I will say, we like I said previously, we bought a self-pellet mixer year ago, year and a bit ago, I guess, and year and a half ago. One thing we noticed with it, and it's no different than the Facer. I mean, before we had a rake, which did an okay job in corn, not so much in grass or alfalfa. And prior to that, we did it with a bucket. And the big thing we noticed with a faced bunk face is, or a couple things is, when we do get a significant rain event, we don't see the huge dry matter swing like we used to. When you have a rough face and you get a driving rain on it, man, has that ever seemed like it sucks in the water, and you just know the next day it's going to be, there's either they're going to be out, or if you compensate for that by 10% or whatever the number is, they're going to have a lot left. It's just not a consistent mix, and that's one thing we've noticed with the Facer. It made a huge difference that way. That it just doesn't seem like it draws that moisture in near as much as a rough face. The other thing we noticed with the defacer is the flying rat starlings there. They just don't seem like they can affect the face near as much as a rough face. They have no shelf to stand on. So we do notice a big difference in that, and you like to think that helps pay for this machine. Now everything helps, but I will sing the self-pellet mixers. Man, I tell you, like the how fast we can deliver feed to the animals now is just amazing, and it amazes me every day. And the consistency, and the very little shrink now, because we're not losing a bunch out of our loader bucket. And mind you, we had a really rough apron around our bunks that didn't make it great for trucking silage over. But boy, I will say it made a huge difference here, just on silage shrink.
Well, thanks, guys. Daniel, do you have a few last words? I promised only an hour, and I've taken an hour and a half, so I feel bad. You're right.
I think that's an excellent way to stop, or place to stop. And I really appreciate Brian and Phil and Amber for organizing this excellent session of questions and answers. It's a really good format.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye now.